March 15th was the peak of anti-corruption protests in Serbia. On that day, over 300,000 people protested in a country of fewer than 7 million, this coming after a wave of protests in response to the train station collapse in Novi Sad on November 1st. But what has happened since March 15th, and what can people expect now? In April, about 80 student protesters bicycled to Strasbourg to meet with the European Parliament and Council of Europe to explain their perspective on what's happening in Serbia. Similarly, students ran nearly 2,000 kilometers to Brussels to share their concerns with the EU. As a reminder, the four main demands are the publication of all documents about the renovation of the Novi Sad railway station, the prosecution of those involved in attacking protesters, a halt to the prosecution of students arrested during the protests, and a 20% increase in the budget for higher education. The protests have gained significant traction in Serbia, partly because they do not publicly support one specific political party. However, the criticisms are directed at Serbian institutions, which are largely controlled by the SNS, the party that's been in power since 2012 and led by Aleksandar Vučić. In my estimation, the protests have lost some of its momentum because there's no clear political alternative to the SNS in Serbia, and foreign organizations like the EU have largely kept quiet. At the same time, it's important to mention the delicate balancing act that's been happening in the background. Serbia maintains important diplomatic relations with Russia, the EU, the US, and China, despite obvious political tensions between some of these countries. Notably, Vučić was in the US in early May to meet with American representatives, although he had to return to Serbia for medical reasons. Only a few days later, he ignored the EU's warnings and met with Putin as he took part in Russia's victory parade on March 7th to mark World War II victory over Nazi Germany. The leaders of over 20 countries were present, but very few were European. Belarus's President Lukashenko, a close ally, Slovak Prime Minister Fico, the only EU leader present, as well as Vučić. Although the EU warned Vučić that he should not visit Russia, he attended the ceremony and upon his return to Belgrade stated that the political will of Serbia is unequivocal for Serbia to be on the European path, to speed up its integration and to do its job. There's certainly some truth to it. Only a few weeks later, Serbia officially joined the single euro payments area, which is a big step in integrating financial systems and making things easier for Serbian citizens. One last thought. The US continues to threaten sanctions over Serbia's oil sector because of the majority stake held by Russia's Gazprom. So far, important sanctions have been postponed, so only short-term deals are possible, with Serbia depending on Russia for low gas prices. To be continued.